Ladies and gentlemen, as chairman of the board of directors of the New College Institute, I hereby call this meeting to order. Welcome. I'm sorry we're starting a little bit late. We had a holiday luncheon. And so it was great to have with both our staff and our members who were able to attend. So we want to thank you. You're also going to find on your in front of you at your desk there at the table a little bit of a holiday keepsake from New College Institute. One is, of course, a ornament, which we would ask, it says New College, of course, right there. We'd ask that you all put that on your tree immediately. Take a picture of it, make it viral, put it on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. This will now be my second one, so I'll put it right next to the other one. This is an item that is one of my favorites. In fact, when I sold my beach house, my lake house, the lady who bought it wanted this to convey. So I'm glad we got another one. But it's a great cutting board for everybody. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a token of our appreciation for serving on the board and doing the great things that we do. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've also got some, looking forward vision statements I think we all want to make and where we're going from here moving forward. So we'll start this meeting off by calling the roll. Numbers.
Senator Bill Stanley.
Here.
Senator Emmett Hanger.
Here.
Yeah.
Richard
Hey,
Hall.
I'd have driven all the way down there if I'd have known I was going to get a gift.
I'll bring one to you next time I see you. President.
Delegate Les Adams.
Here.
Delegate Rodney Willett. Delegate Kathleen Murphy. Naomi Hodge Muse.
Here.
Renee Tweedy.
Here.
Catherine Tanner Brown. Ellen Dyke.
Here.
Eric Jones.
Here.
Cameron Patterson.
Here.
Maria Tambury.
Here.
Here.
Mary Trigiani.
Here.
And Michael Edwards.
Here.
Senator, you do have a poll.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Reed. I appreciate that.
So first of all, we'd like to welcome our new members to the board, some of whom are online. Mike Edwards, I can't see you, but welcome. Thank you. There you are. He's joining us from the West Coast. Thank you for being part of the NCI family. And Mary Trigiani, down at the end. Those are our two latest board members and happy to have them. Also, a few that have not been with us in person before. Ellen, this is her first trip to NCI, so welcome and glad to have you here with us.
But you had to bring Jim with you, huh?
He promised he'd drive me down.
But it's like having your parents watch what you're doing. You can't get away with anything. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce your husband, who is a stalwart, a statesman of the Commonwealth of Virginia, former Secretary of Education, Jim Dyke. Stand up, take it down, my friend. This guy is a real trendsetter, a real forward-thinking person who did so much for our education system. 3.5 years, a little over 3.5 years you served, and one of my personal heroes, and so it's an honor to have you here, and we'd like to welcome you. Actually, we're just going to vote you on the board right now. Let's just go way past that formality of getting approved by the General Assembly, okay, or the government. Before we start, there is a bit of housekeeping that we need to take care of here with regard to those board members that are appearing remotely. We have an electronic participation policy in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which before anyone who has appeared and given us notice that they will be appearing remotely as a member of the board of directors, in order for them to be able to not just participate but vote, we have to then take some action by the board by motion to allow their participation remotely so that their vote counts. Do I have a motion? So moved. Motion being made to allow those that are appearing remotely who are board members to participate in the board meeting and also to vote. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing a second, is there any discussion about that motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion is granted by unanimous consent. We now have all of our members here who are not only in quorum fashion, but also participating by remote vote, and they may fully participate.
Chairman, I just want to point out on
Ms.
policy,
Dyke.
are we going to vote separately on policy? It was just a minor mistake in it, that's all.
The remote policy?
Yeah.
Oh, Madam Dyke, ma'am, Ms. Dyke, you are permitted to make any corrections you'd like.
They no one take up time,
No,
just
no, no,
one
that's
little
fine.
correction. Under state of emergency declarations on the second page, third line down, it says the museum has declared a local state of emergency pursuant. I'm not sure that the museum is supposed to be in there, and probably the words is located, where in which the museum is located is. So just look at that sentence. It's just, there's something wrong with it, okay?
Okay.
Check.
Executive Director, do you have time?
Ramona, I believe.
Yeah.
We can have, do we need to amend the motion to fix that to say in which NCI is located?
Yes,
Declared a local state of emergency?
and I'm asking if you are approving the policy in hope, well, let me try to get it right. Approve the policy noting that the revision has to be made.
Okay, so we need to do
A new motion.
a new motion, correct? With the correct.
Yes.
With the correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adams, having voted on the prevailing side, you want to drill on that, sir?
Sure. Well, having voted on the prevailing side, I move that we reconsider the motion previously made.
Is there a second to that? Second. Second to the motion being properly supported. Is there any discussion to that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to reconsider, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion is being considered. Is there a substitute motion that we would put in place then? Delegate Adams.
I would move that we adopt the policy with the notation that the correction as identified by Ms. Dyke be made.
Second to that motion. Everybody understand the motion? Is the second supporting that motion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in support signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And hopefully our counselor from the AG's office, Ms. Taylor, says we fixed the problem. Is that correct?
Yes, you have.
I love it when we make her happy. We can take it other way.
And I'm sorry I'm not there. I had what I would call a farm type accident in a non-farm environment.
Okay, story time.
I was gonna say, we gotta hear the rest.
Yeah, you can't get away with just that.
No, you all know I was raised on a pig farm in Georgia. And so if you're, as a kid, you would step on a lot of things, just shake it off and keep going. Well, I stepped on something at my church yesterday. And so now I'm limping around because I affected my driving foot.
Well, Ms. Taylor, I hope you stepped on a little salvation.
Well, I was in the church because I'm really trying to go to heaven.
I hope that salvation is good to you. All right, so moving on to item 4, we have previously sent to you by electronic means, but you also have a copy in front of you. The last board meeting minutes from June 23rd, 2021. We always ask you to review ahead of time if you want some time to review those board meeting minutes for their accurateness and transcription, and also any edits and or corrections that you believe should be made to them. If you could do so right now. If there is no consideration, then I would entertain a motion for approval of those meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion being made to approve the June 23rd, 2021 meeting minutes. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second being properly supported. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes or any edits that need to be made in the substitute motion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So that motion is approved. Let's just clear up some things here. We've approved the electronic participation policy as amended. Let us, since we substituted a new motion for the one that was brought for consideration, allowing those to participate by remote interaction and participation. The motion will permit all board members who are appearing by remote means, electronic means, to not only participate, but also vote. So motion being properly made, is it supported by a second? Second being properly supporting of the motion. Is there any discussion to that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and that motion passes. So now the executive director is no longer poking me and they're trying to do the right thing the right way. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my favorite portion of the meeting, chairman's remarks. And I'll try to be brief, but I don't think I've been brief yet. But it's because we have so much to do and so much to talk about. First, I want to welcome every single person who is joining this board for the first time in person. We're just recently appointed. I think what you're going to find, and we've said before when we have new members, is this is not a show pony board. This is not a show horse. We do a lot of great things, a lot of active things, and we have a lot of active participatory minds here that try to make New College better. As we all have said, we believe that education is the gateway for so many young people's future here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but in particular in Martinsville and Henry County, to help them break the cycle of poverty, to help careers be made, to help families be formed, to help success be achieved. And so that's what we plan on doing. I think what you're going to find is, excuse me, a lot of ideas come out of this board. We try to distill them down and make the most of what we get from those ideas that move this county, this city forward. And that has always been our goal and will remain to be. We are coming out of the pandemic year. This pandemic has shut down a lot of institutions throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. It has set up a lot of agendas, a lot of hopes and dreams and forward-looking things that we want to do on hold. But those days, no matter where we are at this point in our life in this part of the century, those days are over. I am seeking that we get back to work full time. I want all hands and need all hands on deck. I want this beautiful building to be bustling and thriving and creating opportunities for those that might not otherwise.
Hey, Barb.
I want to make sure that we always have great educational opportunities that not only help our students, help our citizens, but help our companies that are here and the ones that want to relocate. It requires us at all times to be nimble, to be able to pivot, but also to be innovative. And we're very grateful to have an innovator that sits to my left, the executive director, Ms. Jackson, who has been an incredible leader in her field and also an incredible leader here at New College Institute. I am going to just deviate just a second to create a perhaps quasi-political statement. I want to thank Glenn Youngkin for winning, because she would not be here today. She would probably be the secretary or something in the other administration. So for those of you who voted for Youngkin, we appreciate that we get to keep Karen. But she would have been great no matter where she was within Terry McCullough's administration, as she had been in so many administrations before. So we're always happy to have you. We're grateful for your service and your innovative way of thinking and a Rolodex. She quipped to me one time after the election. She said, I'm losing all my contacts in government. I said, am I chopped liver or what? I mean, you call and bug me enough. That's fine. And so, but I think that everybody on this board should know that we're moving into a new biennium, a new administration. So it's absolutely mission critical that we continue the strong relationship that we have with the Commonwealth of Virginia. If you know and recognize this board years ago, this building was owned by the foundation. There were things at that time that we had forces around us that wondered whether we had a purpose, whether we had a goal, and whether we could even achieve those goals. I think we've not only overcome that, but we've created for ourselves an incredible partnership, both with the acquisition of the building to put in the business into the infrastructure portfolio of the Commonwealth of Virginia. But also you have garnered and have earned the great support of the legislature, that which appropriates the money and that which writes the bills. I mean, write the bills that help and direct this fine institution. And not only that, I think it is very important that as we go into this new administration and the Youngkin administration, that we have to, in some ways, reestablish it. Not that we lose it, but that when you have new secretariats come in, when you have new people in the executive branch, and certainly even when you have new members of the General Assembly, as we now do, that we need to be as vigilant as possible to make sure that those new members and then that new administration and the people that work for it understand the importance of New College to the rest of the Commonwealth of Virginia, but more importantly, even to Southside Virginia. We are on the precipice because of the great things that we're doing and the great things that we're going to do to get to a point where we have restored the economic vitality by our own participation along with others of Southside Virginia, Southwest Virginia, that we have, as you've heard me say 10 times before, and I'll say it 10 times again, that we have found those young people in our elementary schools and our middle schools, even our high schools, who may live at or below the poverty line, but because of the opportunities that we create, whether they be the ones that we have or in collaboration with Patrick Henry or any other educational institution, that we give them that opportunity to break the cycle of poverty by giving them a career, a future that helps them not only break the cycle of poverty for them, but also for the family and for the family that they have in the future. That is our mission, and it remains our mission to this day. And I think right now, when we start thinking about how do we make a difference, and we'll talk about that, I think we as a board need to set a priority list, planning list. And we did that when I first came in, and we deviated off some of it. We've done a lot of it. But I think we as a board need to come up with a comprehensive plan looking forward for the next 2 years and the next 4 years, and maybe even the next 6 years. That we need to be more participatory now inside our elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. That we need to form these partnerships that Executive Director Jackson has made and make them not only solid, make them grand. We have great opportunities with Claude Moore. When we talked about that vision that we had back in the day when we started this Hodge-Muse, as you recall, things we focused on were advanced technology and engineering, healthcare, education. Healthcare being because we live in an underserved, underprivileged area. We need nurses, phlebotomists, and techs. Claude Moore stands ready to help us create that program with Patrick Henry. Create a pipeline, not just a pipeline, perhaps for the medical field, which is the largest employer in my Senate district, but it's the largest employer down. But also to create those opportunities where people want to go in it, to learn about the medical field, to get excited about the medical field, to get into the medical field, and then to ascend. To maybe start out as a CNA, certified nurse's assistant, and become an LPN, nurse practitioner, or even doctor. We have those opportunities now presented to us by Executive Director Jackson's hard work in advanced manufacturing, wind energy. We're still working hard on the Newport News Shipbuilding 3D program, which is not because we don't want to do it, it's because the people putting it together have been a little late putting it together. Thank you. That was diplomatic of me, wasn't it? I can occasionally do that. Thank you. Anything to America? Okay. But we have to create those opportunities that will not only give people careers, but will encourage those industries, as we're starting to see, sure, all these other companies come in. Companies will come in because we're creating that pipeline. And that's going to bring up quality of life. And that's going to bring that economic revitalization that I've been talking to you about for so long. And I'm committed to it. I'm energized. I'm ready to get back to work. I think we've let this pandemic, we've let this virus lead us too much. We must now never, ever forget that even though we're a board of directors, we are a governmental entity. Sometimes those governmental entities put bureaucracy before success. We cannot sit here as a board mired in bureaucracy. We as a staff have to reinvigorate ourselves because we have grown accustomed to sometimes what the bureaucracy says you can and cannot do. We're not that kind of institution. We're the innovators. We're the disruptors. We're the cutting edge. Let's get back to that edge. Let's look over that edge. Let's step off that edge, fly. Because we can and we will, and we owe it to the generations here in Henry County and in Martinsville and in Southside Virginia. So help me God. Now, as we get ready to move to the General Assembly session, which I mentioned earlier, we're lucky to have Senator Hanger and Delegate Adams being a part of our team. Yeah, and Kathleen, you're not on the phone. Rodney Willett, Kathleen Murphy, all of these great, hello, I guess. Sorry, I didn't know you. Hi, Kathleen. We have great, and see, this is a bipartisan effort. And so we have a great opportunity here because we don't have a lobbyist anymore. The foundation took it away from us. The lobbyist was instrumental for us in doing a lot of things, including helping getting this building funded so it could be built. So we have to be our own grassroots activists for this board. Every single one of us, not just the legislature of the legislators that sit on this board, but all of us. And that's why I usually ask that all board members come at least for one overnight visit to the Capitol so that you can meet those legislators, so they understand how important it is. Because it's vital that they give us their support for our future. We will be making a not insignificant ask for a very specified reason. And in the world of the legislature, when you ask for money, unless you're some of the big ones that automatically get it, it can be a struggle. We compete with the higher ed centers. We compete with the UVAs, the techs. There are a lot of bigger fish in that lake. But this is an important fish. This is an important mission. And we're not going to give up until we do that. But we have to, again, convince them that we're not only right, we're not only working hard, that we're also doing great things and we'll do great things in the future. So I will step down out of the pulpit now, but I believe in NCI. I appreciate your time and effort and also your belief in NCI. I appreciate you, staff, as we end this very difficult year after a difficult year practically. Your dedication, your energy, your passion, because that's what matters most, that we make that difference. Because in the end, that's all that matters, is that we made a difference in the time we had. So I look forward to working with you all again on this new mission as we move forward with vigor, with alacrity, and with success as the only option. Now, this has come to the time as part of the chairman's remarks. There are today, I am told by numbers, Ms. Reed. For those members that wonder why I call Christina Reed numbers, it's because she does all the financial stuff. So I used to just tell her numbers, numbers, numbers. Now it's her name. But we have an election of board officers and assignment of committee chairman.
The final say election of officers will be conducted biannually. And it was for minutes last November.
We re-elected last November.
I don't know.
So that means it's only been a year? Nabbit. Oh, I mean, nobody wants to be chairman? You mean I'm still here?
Yep.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make some assignments that aren't. So did we also appoint chairman to those committees? And then are there any chairmen who were appointed to those subcommittees that are no longer a member of the board?
Those appointed were Mandy Hodgkins was appointed to the educational outreach for the academic programs committee.
Perfect.
And I believe Delegate Adams remained on the educational outreach committee. And those are two committees, two standing committees that you have besides the executive committee.
But the bylaws permit me also to create subcommittees as well. does it not? Mr. Hall, had you made a suggestion about creating an extra committee?
Finance committee.
Mr. Hall has suggested that perhaps we add another committee called the Finance Committee so that we're making sure that our dollars are, every single dollar is well placed and gets the highest return possible on the investment made by the state. Remember, most of the investment here is a state-based investment that it makes. We do get grants, we do get funding from other sources. Usually those are case specific to programs. But it is nevertheless important that I think we should engage a little more deeply, not just approving budgets, but also there are so many people that I see with such talent. The guy next to Les Adams, not Les Adams, kidding, that we need to probably do. I concur with you that the finance committee would be appropriate. Does this board or any board member have an opinion on whether we add another standing committee? Now, this would not be a committee created by the bylaws, but that does not prevent me from creating one and then assigning people to.
Can you walk us through the committee list as it currently stands?
Yes. Ms. Reed? Committee list? No, I think she's saying what they do.
What are the lists of committees? And
There's two standing committees, the Academic Programs Committee and the Educational Outreach Committee. Academic Programs Committee shall oversee the academic programs offered by NCI from participating institutions and evaluate the success of the programs offered, as well as the integration of technology into programs and facilities. The Educational Outreach Committee shall oversee efforts in marketing and communications, educational special events, experiential learning, community outreach and engagement, student retention, and safety and security.
thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Anybody else have an opinion for or against the forming of the finance? I'm going to take that ascension by silence. Is that right? So I'm going to ask Chairman of the powers vested in the Commonwealth to create a finance committee. Who would like to serve on that finance committee? Don't rush to the front so fast. I know you. You don't want to know who would be willing to sit on that committee. I think I see Richard Hall, since you know whoever formed it leads it. So Mr. Hall, I'm going to appoint you as chairman. Now, usually how many members do we put on the subcommittee besides the chairman and the ex officio members, which is the executive director and the chairman?
Not specify a specific number, it's usually like 2 or 3.
Usually, yeah, 2 or 3. Big committees kind of get cumbersome. Smaller committees get less cumbersome. Who would be able to be willing to volunteer their time on the finance? Great. That's 1. 2.
I'll go.
Yeah, 3. True, yeah. Okay. So now, thank you all for serving. It's really important, especially look. I think I said in my opening remarks, we've got some funding needs. We've always been able to maintain a certain level. Some years, if you serve in the legislature, you'll find that sometimes you're backpedaling and trying to hold on to what you got because reallotment, recommitting to other sources, or the revenue income from the state is lower. We don't seem to have that problem this year, but that doesn't mean that we won't have it in the future. So I think a good fiscal policy adoption from this committee, and I appreciate everyone who's willing to serve on it, I think is a very strong way to do it. Mr. Hall, thank you for your suggestion, and we thank you in advance for your hard work. Numbers, when it came to the Academic Programs Committee, did we have a list of those who served on it already?
I could not locate a list.
I'm going to appoint Ms. Hodge-Muse again to be chairman. Is that all right with you?
Yes.
Ms. Hodge-Muse, would you like to pick some people that would like to serve on that academic programs? You've heard the listing. This is going to be very critical, mission critical, as I said before, to make sure that we're filling those buckets, whether it be education, health, advanced manufacturing, engineering. We'll talk about a little bit of CAFM, the film.
Okay.
So
Tweety and Dyke.
Tweety and Dyke. I watch that cartoon all the time. It's my favorite. Wake up, bowl of Captain Crunch, watch Tweety and Dyke.
Don't forget those on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Is there
yeah.
anybody else who would like to
Okay,
use
is anybody on the street? Mike?
William Murphy or anyone else?
Mike?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mike Edwards, I'm pleased to serve on any committee. Absolutely.
Mike, that's like when I ask my kids what they want for dinner, and they say, I don't care. So why don't you pick a committee and, or something that sounds like it's up now. The 3 committees are finance, academic programs, and then we're gonna do educational outreach, so.
I'm pleased to serve on academic program if there's space.
I like educational outreach.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Delegate Murphy.
Thank you, Delegate Murphy.
Now, look, you see, everybody who's at the board is kind of shy, but everybody who's online and the screen is very aggressive and wants to participate. So we're gonna go totally
Maria?
back to Zoom.
Maria? how about you?
Educational outreach for Maria.
Got it.
Great
Welcome.
committee. Well, a lucky job.
That was outreach there, kiddo. You're in programs.
Oh, really? She was not like it.
We're on out.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Does educational outreach cover community involvement?
Yes.
I'll volunteer for that. That's a very strong opinion.
Welcome, Les. Well, look, and so let's talk about, so we talked about academic programs being essential. We really need to fill those tranches and buckets in those three areas, and maybe more that we're talking about as we move forward, as we vault forward, back at full steam ahead, full strength. But really, remember what I'm talking about here, and I think the importance is not just Claude Moore's vision for what it sees even for its health system, and getting kids interested in the healthcare fields, which requires us, and I understand the schools aren't exactly letting us come in just yet because of COVID protocol. But those have to come to an end, and they will come to an end. And we need to be ready to go in there and find that next nurse practitioner, that next advanced manufacturing, steward, that next teacher, and get them excited about academic programs and careers earlier, at an earlier age. And so that outreach is going to be into our schools. That outreach is back into the community. So every time I say something right, she hits that button and I get a point. And we also need to be thinking about, as Les, I'm telling you right now, and those members of the committee on outreach, marketing. We need to, and the staff too, we need to be thinking outside the box of how we attract what is our non-traditional student, which may be the older student who's looking to re-up and change the way that they are, or what they are in terms of their career. And also, even more important, because I think it's two different ways of advertising. Reaching out and connecting and holding those younger people that are in our public schools, those young men and women that may want a career but don't know where to go, or that from even their experience with us, they choose maybe another path that we don't have, but that gets them invigorated and excited about something that if we can't offer, Patrick Henry offers it. If Patrick Henry doesn't offer it, somebody somewhere will offer it, we will help. So I think that's just as important. Marketing and outreach are very critical for us moving forward. So I want to thank you for that.
Hi, this is Maria, and I wanted just to add one quick thing, and I think everything you said was great. One of the things that also that committee can also tackle, and I don't know if this was in the plan, but it's also with outreach, particularly reaching out to underrepresented communities, sort of the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece as well. And I think that's something that as we market the new College Institute and what the benefits are, I think thinking of those communities would be important.
Totally agree with you, and I think that should be part of that. Chairman Adams, if you don't mind making note of that, that is part of this as well. Ultimately, what we have to be is reflective of our community, responsive to our community, and making sure that we are the foundations of the success. Not only the people that come through these doors, but also the community that surrounds us. And that's everybody. No matter who you are, no matter what you are, where you come from, how old you are, we have a great civic responsibility, which we need to always adhere to at all times.
One point. So,
Yes.
so education and outreach and academic programs tie closer together, but there's still a separation.
Correct. Yes.
So
Yeah. They should work together, but because academic programs are going to feed how outreach is.
correct.
I want to go to job fairs. I want to go to career day. I want to have everybody have the
Yeah, I
opportunity.
bought it because I saw you guys had
Clarification.
the
Which chair?
gray one.
I'm sorry.
It all got torn.
Yeah, we're slowing us down.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the end of the world. Can you just, before you open it though, read is this? I'm sorry.
This is getting good.
Can you, are you on, anybody that's not speaking, can you go on mute?
Well, I thought I was on mute.
No. No.
There we go.
house looks very beautiful and it looks like it's getting ready for the holidays. All right, so is there any further discussion on what we've been talking about, election of board officers, committee chair assignments, and what we see is what we need to have vision moving forward for my chairman's comment. Anybody like to say anything? To recognize?
Mr. Chairman, this is Emmett here.
Hello, Emmett here.
Yeah, I'll go on finance. If you're trying to get somebody on every committee, I'll do that if you still have a slot there.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's very important. Senator Hanger has been a long-serving member, not only of my caucus, but a finance committee in the Senate. Was co-chair of finance for a long time, so he has a wealth of knowledge. Plus, he can help us navigate the waters that need to be navigated in the up and down world of legislative finance. Okay, so thank you, Senator Hanger. I appreciate you volunteering for that as well.
You bet.
Christina. You're talking. Can you read, how did you say it? Can you read back the committee assignments as they currently are formed and see if anybody else wants to join anything else before we move on to the next action item?
Yes, and I tried to capture who said what, so if I have anyone's name wrong on the list, please let me know. The finance committee, I have Richard Hall as chair, Mary Trigiani as a member, Eric Jones and Emmett Hanger. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Eric, were you?
Yes.
Okay, Academic Programs Committee, Ms. Hodge Hughes is the chair with Trinae Tweedy and Ellen Dyke, Mike Edwards and Eric Jones.
Anybody else want to join that committee? Okay, next committee.
All right, Educational Outreach is Delegate Adams is the chair with Maria Timburi, Richard Paul, and Kathleen Murphy. Is there anyone else on that?
I'm an ex officio member of all your committees. Okay, so we ladies and gentlemen, thanks for volunteering stepping forward. That's very important. What I'd like for the chairman to do is kind of, meet with me or just set an agenda. Let's talk it over, what you hope to achieve, what the committee hopes to then achieve in the next, this next coming year. And I would say in the next 2 meetings, so that we can, by the time we hit springtime, we're in planning and execution, not in talking about what we're doing or may do. Okay. I always think that bureaucracy has great meetings about future meetings. I do not operate that way. I want a plan. I want you to tell me how to execute it, and then I want to be successful in its execution. And so I demand the same of that. So please, Chairman, even if you're meeting by Zoom, which makes it more convenient because everybody's kind of spread out, please get some action items together. Let's talk about big picture. Let's drill down on some stuff. And let's have some, even if we could have stuff to present the board at the next meeting. What we usually have done is, as a part of that advocacy, is we have a New College Institute Day at the Capitol, where we call you all down if y'all can make it. If y'all can make it, we try to hold a meeting of the board. We've done that before. So then what we have is a social hours, hour and a half or 2. And I have a law office that is right behind the Supreme Court building on 8th Street, 1 block from the Capitol, and our office is at the Pocahontas building. And so we've had some very good success having like a cocktail, wine and cheese party there. And what we have is a lot of the legislators come over. And we've seen that number grow and grow. And we hand them out stuff like this. It's under $25, they get to have it. And they get to know you, and you get to advocate for this institute. And I think it's very important that we try to do that again. So, Madam Executive Director and Ms. Reed, if you can plan something to get out to people, let's pick a day. Usually it's a weekday. Fridays are no good because everybody's going home early. Sundays are no good because everybody's coming back late. Usually your best days are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of usually that week. I know that may hurt some people's schedules or make it impossible. But networking and building relationships is really important, especially in government, and especially with the government that runs this entity itself, or is the over top of us for that stuff. So if you'll do that, Christina, set around and see what works best for everybody. And we also include the staff and invite you all to come. So we want to make it a family affair and demonstrate to the legislature that determines our financial fate, that we are strong, we are active, and we are doing things that is worth every tax dollar. that we do. Okay? All right. So also, I think in your packet that was sent electronically, is the proposed bylaws. Now, I've been in trial, so I must confess I breezed over these. I didn't get home until about 1:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to let our counselor from the AG's office, Ramona Salvation Taylor, to go over these bylaw changes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been on board before, and I just do this, I'm sure everybody's very savvy and knows what this is all about. When this was created by statute, we then had organizational bylaws, much the same way a company does. It has bylaws which then we have to conform to the bylaws, which is to make sure how we conduct business as an institute. Bylaws are subject to amending, can be changed entirely, can be readopted by a vote of this board. But it must be done by public notice first, and then we go over those changes. Anybody can make recommendations, anybody can make motions to modify those recommendations or recommended board or bylaws changes. And then what we do is if we have a motion in a second, we would vote. And if that vote is, it's not a super majority, is it? Number, just a majority, right? Just a simple majority, we can adopt those bylaws and they become a part of how we run the ship. So without further ado, put your hands together. Last in your charts, first in your hearts, Ramona Taylor.
I don't know if I deserve that intro.
Do, Ms. Taylor.
Well, just to give you some background on these recommended changes, we've included a chart of the changes comparing what your old language is and what the proposed, well, your current language versus proposed language.
And you should have those in your packet.
Right, they should be in the packet. And so what I typically do when I first represent a group, I try to figure out what they do. And so in going through your statutory provisions that established the New College Institute, I noticed there had been some statutory updates to membership. And then I noticed that your bylaws didn't give you the opportunity to amend. And so in this table, we have a number of things, including the updates on the numbers of your membership, as well as the class of your membership. I also updated the statutory provisions that relate to meetings, who can call meetings, what the character of meetings should be, which are consistent with section 3707.1, 2.2 which is under FOIA. And then what I also added, I'm going to go on the table. Some additional corrections on what you do if you have a vacancy on the board. I wanted that to be more consistent with the code authority that you have. And so if you look on your helpful chart, that's really what you find on page 2. And to draw you to those changes, some of the areas are highlighted, and then the new language is in red. So really the changes are more to give you authority to do some additional things, especially when it relates to amending your bylaws, because there are going to come times when it's not a code change, but maybe a FOIA change, or maybe a committee you want to expand or add. This gives you the nuance to do that, which you didn't have before. So I tried to make that simple. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions about some of these bylaw changes? Yes. Ms. Dyke.
I had a question about just maybe there's a misword in section 2, IVB.
Hold on, let me get there.
At the very end, it says, however, new language, however, a member appointed to serve an unexpired term is eligible to serve 2 consecutive 4-year terms immediately. The next word is preceding. I'm wondering if that word should be succeeding such unexpired term.
Council?
Probably. Oh, I'm getting to that section.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, that's all right. I don't know how to rotate on my Outlook. Because I'm working from home. It should be following. Actually, if that will make it clearer. Because what the intention of the law was, is there not to be a break in service, and that prior part term should not count against a person from having 2 full terms on a board. So it should be following to make sure there's no break. And I can correct that. Okay.
All right.
I need her in the office to prove my other stuff.
Okay, are there any other issues or questions with bylaws as they're being presented from the Attorney General's office for a minute?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just
Look at that.
wonder, have we had an issue in the past with a 10-day notice requirement for changing the bylaws? See, the recommendation is to delete that as a requirement. I think it's the last item. It seems that it might be useful to have that, you know, as could have a consequential. I see the recommendations justified as more flexibility. Clearly, we give more flexibility, but that should be weighed against the, I think, you know, a due process sort of understanding that if the bylaws were to be changed, people would have time to think about it.
Counselor?
Right. And he's right. I took that 10-day provision out to give you more flexibility. So you could actually set the time period in case, say there's something situational that comes up and you realize you want to change your bylaws, that 10 days may play against you. However, I don't believe you've had an issue that has come up that prompted a revision of bylaws until this. So if you think it is a good idea to keep the 10 days in, then that's fine. I'll make that amendment. I'm all about flexibility for the board.
We appreciate that, Counselor. All right, is there any more discussion on the issue brought forth by Delegate Abt?
I like what he's saying. I think the 10 days should stay. Because if you go the opposite direction, somebody could just start changing things and nobody really understands. So I think it's better to leave it there.
Any other discussion about the proposal? Mr. Abt?
Naomi's position.
Hall supports Naomi's position. Should never not support Naomi. Smart man. Anybody else? Okay, so what?
Just a question on the 10 days. Is the 10 days the window that's normed by just official plan? 10 comes from What does that derive? Is it just what it was? Or is
Yeah,
that the
no.
normal for most boards or?
I think that
Is there
was
an
just what
opinion?
was in there before.
Okay.
Yeah.
To give like
What
two.
she did was create more flexibility.
But in creating more flexibility, you can actually create less flexibility because things get changed so fastly that everybody is not on board, and then you gotta fight. So I would at least have that 10 days, so then people will have the time to think about it and not feel rushed. Because sometimes things people.
But, and I can give you an example of a board that didn't have that 10-day window. There was a situation that arose at a board meeting where they were holding elections and they learned that one of their members would not be able to complete a term. And so what they wanted to do was shorten the term to give a person with experience the ability to complete that office or role on the board before the next election. So it was more of a continuity of leadership issue that arose, and they became aware of it at a board meeting. And that's why a provision like this helped them. You may not often have that situation arise because that was also in the throes of COVID.
Does that spawn any more questions? Cameron?
You need a motion. Oh, did you need a motion?
Well, no, I mean, I think what we kind of have to probably do is take some, we can vote on these changes in a block, but what I then would ask is that if anyone wants to take something out and make an amendment to discuss amendments, we've discussed not accepting the amendment. So when those things happen, I think the best way to do this is to have a motion to put all of these these changes to the amendments to the bylaws. We vote on them in a block, and then a request to remove something from the block will be given by the chair, so that we'll vote on what's left of the block, and then those separate issues will be voted on individually. Is that pretty fair for everybody? Okay, all right. Do I have a motion to accept the bylaws? And really, the best thing to do is let's work off our flow chart, because that's a better way than the red line version. Unless, for the record, Ms. Taylor, you want the red line version referred to in any motion. So we'll look at these amendments. And if anybody wants to pull one out of the block and make a change, an amendment, then we'll take those up separately after we vote on the remaining parts that are in the block. Is that fair enough? What we do in the legislature seems to work pretty good. Until everybody pulls out everything in the block, and then there's no block. Do I have a motion to accept the recommended changes by the Attorney General's office to the bylaws of College Institute as reflected both in the red line version and in the breakdown version that you has?
So moved.
Motion being made by Delegate Murphy. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second motion. Is there anybody who wants to remove something from the block?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that remove that the last recommended change be removed from that adoption motion.
So in the breakdown on page 3, the last, which is BIII in the section 8 of the bylaws, will be removed from the block without objection. Is there anything else that needs to be removed from the block that someone may have a motion to amend or change? As it's currently required.
Page 6, the second block that.
Oh, it's page 6. I see that. I'm sorry. So the first one was on page 7, Roman numeral 8. Page 6, yes, sir, Cameron.
That second block, which Ms. Dyke referenced, the motion that be pulled.
Okay.
So it's the one with the highlighted, but after the expiration of it.
I think Ms. Ramona recommended following instead of proceeding such unexpired term.
Right.
All right, that section, which is found on page 6, second block, starting with the proposed revisions, no legislative citizen member of the board shall be removed from the block. Are there anything else? Is there anything else here that you'd like to be removed from the block? Have it. All right, hearing none, we removed It's like the suggestion that you made. So we removed two things from the block. Otherwise, shall the board adopt what it remains in the block? All those requested bylaws changes with the exception of page 6, block number 2, starting with non-legislative citizen members. And on page 7, Roman numeral 8, these bylaws may be altered. Shall the motion, is there a motion to approve everything except those two things that have been removed from the block?
So moved.
Motion to approve except those from those two removed from the block has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second properly supporting the motion. Is there any discussion on the remaining bylaw changes which have not been removed from the block? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All opposed, sign. And those alterations and modifications, amendments to the bylaws have been approved by this board unanimously. You find that correct, to be correct, Ms. Reed? Yes, thank you.
And
All right,
I'll
we'll
send
take
an
the-
updated draft.
Okay, so we still have the two that we pulled out of the block, Ms. Taylor, so let's take those out first. We'll now take this up separately, page 6 in the bylaw revision chart, the second block down into it. Do we have a motion of amendment that may be made to that?
Motion that we approve the second block on page 6 with an adjustment replacing the word proceeding with following.
All right. Motion being made, is there a second in support? Second occurring and being in support of the motion. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor to approve page 6, second block of the proposed revision chart as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And that motion passes. Which leaves us page 7, Roman numeral 8. Is there a proposed motion to amend what is contained on the proposed revision chart?
Do we just leave it as is? Since we won't change it.
Or we can just pass it by, I guess, right?
Or, I mean, it's not changing it then if we didn't adopt it.
Correct, but I think since it's proposed in the red line, we probably should all shoot it down if we think it. With all due respect, Ms. Taylor. I think we shoot it down. So
Can I motion to leave as is?
a motion with the recommendation that the motion be rejected. You would move the amendment. With the recommendation that it be rejected, you would move that the amendment be adopted. And then we don't have motions to reject.
And then vote no.
Yeah, with the recommendation that you vote no, you would move the admission, you would move the motion, you would move the adoption of the amendment.
Move the adoption of the amendment
With the recommendation that it be.
with the recommendation that it be rejected.
Having that motion be made on this last one, is there any second to that motion? Second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. No. Raise some hands. Chairs in doubt. Kidding. The motion fails. So we have now put those revisions into perfect order. They're now part of our bylaws. So we did that pretty quickly. That wasn't so bad. What you all didn't realize is that Ramona had made an amendment, which means you all have to give me $5,000 a piece in cash before we leave. It's page 9. What? Come on, man.
Pull it up now.
I volunteered that the bylaws go into finance.
Really? Okay there, mister. You want to come up here and do the good things, Jeff?
Page 2.
All right, now, we now have Kevin from the New College Foundation. Kevin DeConnick. Kevin, that's
Pretty close. DeConnick, Longo.
DeConnick. He's going to give us a presentation of the College Foundation. Okay, wait a minute, Kevin.
Yes.
Once again, I'm being told what to do, but I think if you can wait, I think because we have some members of the board that can't stay on, we have some closed action item to take care of. I So you're right. So if you don't mind, just a second, closed session for those that have never been on the board is where anybody in the public is shushed out of the door after a motion has been made. It's only permitted to conduct certain business with regard to personnel issues, property issues, those kind of things, which are subject to FOIA or public disclosures. I will accept a motion at this time to go into closed session.
I move that the Board of New College
You
Institute
guys don't leave, just to
convene
be
a closed meeting pursuant to 2.2-3711A1 and 2.2-3711A8 for discussion of personnel matters and consultation with legal counsel, more specifically discussion of the interim director's current contract and possible recruitment for the executive director position.
All right, that the motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second being properly supportive of the motion. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, members, please call the roll.
You don't have to call
Now, they'll have to call the roll, so then they leave.
I thought we had to call the roll to go into session.
We do.
So
Call the roll.
that's what I just said.
She said, no, I'm agreeing with you.
Call the roll.
Senator Bill Stanley,
Yes.
Senator Emmett Hager,
Aye.
Richard Hall,
Aye.
Delegate Adams,
Yes.
Delegate Rodney Willett, Delegate Kathleen Murphy,
Aye.
Naomi Hodge Muse, Renee Tweedy,
Aye.
Catherine Tanner Brown, Ellen Dyke, Eric Jones,
Aye.
Cameron Patterson,
Aye.
Maria Timbury,
Aye.
Mary Trigiani, and Michael Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Hall, do you have a motion from the outside?
Yes, sir. Whereas the members
Certification motion.
Whereas the members of the New College Institute convened a closed meeting on December 7th, 2021 pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Now it be resolved in accordance with Virginia Code 2.23712 that the Board of New College Institute hereby certifies to the best of each member's knowledge. One, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Virginia law, and two, such public matters as were identified in the motion in which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, considered in the closed meeting. Require a roll call vote.
There's a motion. Is there a second? And it sounded like at the end of one of those FDIC commercials, you know, that they don't, past performance is not an indicator of future outcomes. That was well past it. Second being probably supported by Amy Hodge Muse. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, call the roll. Signify by aye, all not in favor, nay.
Stanley,
Yes.
Senator Emmett Hager,
Yes.
Richard Hall,
Yes.
Delegate Les Adams,
Yes.
Delegate Kathleen Murphy, Naomi Hodge Muse,
Yes.
Renee Tweedy,
Yes.
Ellen Dyke,
Yes.
Eric Jones,
Yes.
Cameron Patterson,
Yes.
Maria Timbury,
Yes.
Mary Trigiani,
Yes.
and Michael Edwards.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we come out of closed session. I believe from those discussions, there's a motion emanating from the board. Mr. Hall, do you have it written down or someone else has it written
I
down?
wrote it, but I handed it the numbers. Did you read my motion?
This is a proposal of what Mr. Hall's motion would be. Is that right, Mr. Hall? It's drafted by you, but read by
Numbers.
Matters in consultation with legal counsel. The board delegates to the chair to work with the AG office to negotiate, draft, and execute in line with the terms discussed by the board, the 6-month extension of the contract for the interim director position here in Jackson.
Is that your motion, Mr. Hall?
That is my motion.
And you so move?
I so move.
Is there a second to Mr. Hall's motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries unanimously. Jackson, you'll have to deal with me. I know. Is that something anybody wants to do during the holidays?
But single nay vote.
Yeah, but I think, look, and this is an indication, as we've said, this is something that we've been discussing. And we're very excited having you as our executive director. Thank you for that. Thank you for your friendship, hard work, and brilliance. You matter a great deal to me and to every member of this board and to the Commonwealth of Virginia. You would have made a great secretary, whatever you're going to do. We got her back. All right. So let's move on to the next, the executive director's reports. Karen R. Jackson.
All right, so.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Drive safe, drive safe.
All right. Kevin, what?
Kevin,
Oh, darn it.
yeah, I'm
Kevin, I'm
sorry.
sorry. I'd already checked you off. Kevin Nicole.
All right. My name is kind of a difficult one to pronounce. It's DeConing, Kevin DeConing. And the only time anyone gets it right is when we happen to be flying in Europe somewhere. And they can pronounce it pretty easy over there. But certainly grateful to have the presentation, be able to present here. And I bring you warm greetings from the New College Foundation. I wanted to just say that I'm just delighted to be able to present just some of the happenings that's been taking place, specifically since the sale of the building, what's been going on with the foundation, and how we are excited about partnering with NCI to figure out what we can do together going forward. I want to try to make a point that to be at every meeting next year, and to the extent you want to have me present at any other meetings next year, I'm game for that. And also would like to extend an offer to either Karen or Margaret, someone who could come into the foundation board meeting and speak about the programming, and offer that invitation to whoever might want to do that. Keep in mind our next trustee meeting with the foundation is Tuesday, February 22nd. So if you can kind of factor that timing in mind, and if someone, whether it be Karen, Margaret, or someone else capable of speaking about programming, because our board is always excited to hear what's going on in that regard. Senator Stanley, last meeting, you made a reference about pulling the sheet off the car and revving up the engines and like that. And when you made that statement, I was thinking to myself, yeah, I felt that with the foundation. I felt like October the 23rd, 2020 was the time that the sheet was coming off the car, and it was an exciting time to take the proceeds from the building sale and to figure out how we could wisely invest them to earn some returns to be able to get back to NCI to fund future programming. So I think that was kind of our time of revving up the engines. And I think since that time, we've had a few goes around the tracks with a few grants that have been granted to kind of figure out, okay, how can we work together? What are some of the things we can jointly do together? But talking about that, I want to change that metaphor just a little bit. Before coming to Virginia, about 3 years ago, I lived in Northeast Indiana. I was originally from Indiana. And I was up in Northeast Indiana, almost into Michigan, and up there, I was part of the minority population because 52% of the county was Amish. And when you drive around in rural Northeast Indiana, you dodge three things: roadkill, potholes, we're talking about the Midwest, right? And horse droppings. And when you're driving around there, you're swerving and diving and everything else. But one of the things you see quite often in town is something called a hitching post, where you hitch your horse up to. And I think that's been really helpful for me as being a leader of the New College Foundation, of figuring out, okay, we've got a past, we've got a few years together, but we got a future. Do we hitch to the past, or do we allow the hitching post to be the guiding post to the future? And so many times I speak to different people, and everyone's either hitched to the past, let's just keep talking about the past, Or let's look at that hitching post as being a guidepost to the future. First time I met Karen, she probably doesn't recall this, was at the trades conference. And the first thing she said is, let's talk about the future. Praise be to God. Let's talk about the future, because if you hang on to the hitching post, you spend so much energy holding on to the hitching post, you can't even think about the future. And that's where my energy is. I don't spend time dwelling on the past. I don't do it in my personal life. I don't do it in my professional life. It takes too much energy, brings you down. And we've got so much opportunity to move forward. And if I wasn't a public secretary right now, I'd call for an amen. Amen. Let's go down to the slides. Let's briefly talk about some of the organization. This is going to be a repeat to most of you, I think. 2006, both NCI and NCF came into existence. NCF, no surprise, is a 501c3 tax exempt organization. And with that comes some responsibilities that we need to be good stewards on behalf of the community. So I take those responsibilities very seriously. 2016, NCF was reorganized to be a standalone entity. There's a lot of history behind that. It would take a half a day to discuss. But since 2016 to 2020, October 23rd, 2020, we were basically in a landlord-tenant relationship where we owned the building. NCI was one of the biggest tenants of the building, et cetera. We'll get into that in a little bit more. My board has 8 trustees on it. I've been happy that we keep adding more and more people. Since my tenure, I think we've added 3 new folks to the board. I have a mixture of people that 2 alumni from NCI, which is kind of cool because they speak about their experiences here. I have 2 retired school officials, 1 new school person who's in leadership role, who brings a tremendous amount of new energy to the board that I'm excited about. I have a person that has cloud-based training experience. There's anytime we start talking about Amazon, I say, Jody, can you speak about this? Because I can't, and she does. And then we have a banker. So we've got a good mixture of people, a diverse group that I'm really proud of. Anyway, there we go. A little bit more about the historical support. That in the past, when the building was being constructed, NCF, and I'm not sure, Christina, if you did that, how long have you been with NCI? 10 years, okay, so you were around. That NCF served as a fiscal manager, management of the funds being used to construct this building. NCF served as a fiscal manager for the Harvest Foundation funds. They gave both funds for the construction of the building, which is $8 million. And then they gave some money for programming and other ongoing operating costs. I think that total a little bit over 23 million. And as I alluded to before, that up until October 23rd, 2020, New College Foundation served as the landlord, and that was our biggest touch with the with NCI. I think at that time was you guys were the tenants, and there were some testy times during that time period. Let's call the elephant out in the room. There were some testy times because anytime you have a landlord-tenant relationship, you can imagine some of the issues that come up from that. Going on with historical support, generous community support. You see the bullet point number 2 that the first executive director, Dr. Barry Dorsey, he was instrumental in getting a lot of the funds that are now providing scholarships to students to go to NCI. His passing is, we're approaching a 1-year anniversary of his passing. And he was a strong supporter. I dare say that he actually wrote a check towards the last week of his life to the scholarship funds. So students could go to school here. So he really supported it. But when a student applies for a scholarship, even though we've got these 13 different funds, a student does not, an applicant does not need to apply for each individual fund. They apply one time, and then we figure out which fund would best suit their needs. Some of the funds have restrictions to them. They'd like to have an entrepreneur, for example, to fund someone to go into being an entrepreneur. So then we pull funds from that fund to help provide for scholarship money for that particular student. So that's kind of nice. It's a pretty simple process for someone to apply for a scholarship. That's the way we want to keep it. Here's what happened this last cycle, the 2021-2022 scholarship cycle. We had 22 applicants and 2 were disqualified. One was just a poor rating on, especially on the person's writing, that they were not provided funds. And another individual materially falsified the application process to the point we had to disqualify that person, which is unfortunate. We paid out $27,000. I haven't looked at the yearly payouts over the last several years, 30, 35, 40,000. One year was 12,000. So that's kind of within the range. But here's a story that you're not going to see on the slides, is that we had authorized to spend a lot more than $27,000. We just needed more applicants, right? And I'm going to take it upon myself, no promises here, but I'm going to see about whether when's the last time we've increased our scholarship amounts, and does it make sense to take a fresh look at the scholarship amounts? Like for the first year, a person going for the first year for an undergrad, I think they get $2,500. Does that still make sense, or should it be higher? Has tuition gone up that we need to catch up with tuition? So I'm going to start having some of those conversations internally before I present to the board in February to see if we keep it at its current scholarship amounts, or whether it's time to consider increasing them. If you hang around me very long, you understand I like to spend money. Brian can tell you that. I don't like to leave the money on the table, so let's figure out how we can invest it. Here's some of the recent support continuing on. You see here, this is a big part of what the foundation does, is the scholarships, and that's been going on for years. Here are some other things that's going on that you may or may not be aware of. That we serve as the fiscal manager of some of the external grants that come to NCI. For example, the Claude Moore, we've received now 2 different checks from them. The first one was for $60,000, and that was phase 1 of what Karen put together for a conversation about our medical coverage here in the community, and how we could work together with various partners to figure out, is there a way to create a healthier pipeline to get more and more students involved in considering healthcare as a field of study. So, and then recently, over the last month or so, we received another $100,000 from Claude Moore that we can pick up and continue on the conversation that I'm sure Karen will be speaking to about later, or someone else. We also have a $50,000 Marietta Morgan Trust that came in. I'm not totally sure what that is. That's somewhat new. I need to be with the grant writer to kind of get a better understanding of what makes up that grant. I believe it's somewhat technology related, but don't quote me on that. The art grant was a $50,000 grant that just finished up, that dealt with the Trades Entrepreneur Program that Matt Leidy was helping head up with that, and he was working with other schools in the area, other schools in the state, to try to get good marketing data to see, is there an opportunity to provide an entrepreneur training program for people going into the trades. The third bullet point, we provide fiscal management for grants and contributions coming to Brian's way over here for the robotics, NCI's robotics program. And there's been a lot of movement in this area. There's always another check coming in, and Brian's doing something right over there because people want to back what he's doing, but that's kind of a neat area. Again, these are all external because these are monies coming into the foundation that we are keeping on behalf of NCI. internal grants, stuff that we are now starting to fund from NCI. And this is pretty cool. I think Karen and I did a happy virtual dance, the first award that we had, which was the $10,000 that we gave towards the Radford Impact Program. There were 8 students that participated in the cyber training program that I think is going to last for a year. And so we paid out throughout their $8,400 on behalf of those 8 students who are participating in that program. We also have on the table and $100,000 grant that we've given to Amazon, to NCI related to the Amazon Restart Program. And we're just kind of, I think Karen is finalizing the details on her partnership with Amazon, but this is a good step. And it's going to be neat to see what's next. But I know I was really excited when my board said, yeah, let's do this. And we are in a position that we were able to do that because of some of the investments that we've experienced. And let's talk a little bit about finances. This is a brief overview. Our fiscal year end is June 30th. We have 13.5 million on the balance sheet. Comes to no surprise, most of that is investments. We had net income of last year of $541,000. Now I'm going to start speaking a little bit of accounting talk to you. Accountants, yeah, I'd say, but it's really 1.4 million when you add back the non-cash charges. So what in the world are you talking about? These are charges that you didn't write a check for. You don't write a check for depreciation expense. You bought the building, you bought some asset some time ago, now you're depreciating it, but it shows up as an expense, as a drag against net income. When you add back the non-cash charges for last year, $1.4 million, that's pretty cool. I mean, we were just coming out of the building sale, ripped off the cover off the car. We got a $1.4 million. We're saying, well, yeah, let's go, you know. The third bullet point is one that I've kind of spent a lot of time addressing, is driving down our operating costs. Now, when we had the building, needless to say, we had a lot more full-time people because we needed people to manage the building, right? You had maintenance people, you had coordinators, that type of thing. Now, our personnel is what you're looking at. I'm the sole person that works for the New College Foundation. We've driven out a lot of costs. We've gone from a bigger suite of offices that was 2,000 square feet down to a single office. It's next to the ground floor coffee shop. It's kind of a nice little bonus. It's a great place to have meetings over there. And so we're down to about $150,000 operating cost, which is about 8.5% of our last year's revenue. I think that's pretty good number, which means that allows for 92% of the money to go back for either grants or wealth accumulation. And either one's a good story. I also added here, just to give you perspective, we've got our money invested over at Stiefel. There are money managers over there. And for this last year, we've got different buckets of money being invested. We have $11.7 million invested. And has received a return of 8.85%. And then we have endowments related to the scholarships. One of them is some private stock that we have, and it realized a 42% return because it was so far down the previous year that now it went way up. And then the rest of our funds, the 13 funds that I spoke about for the scholarships, that received a return of about 10%. So we had a good last year, and I think we've taken some right baby steps. We haven't arrived, but I do say that we are not hitched to the past. We're trying to figure out how to walk with you guys to move to the future. And Senator Stanley, I heard you at last meeting say that you were asking people, what can I do to help you? Here's what you can do to help me. Is anytime there's a strategy conversation taking place, either within this body, whatever setting, please consider inviting me to the table so I can hear. it's so much more helpful when I
That's
know
new.
what's going, what's that?
That's new from the guys before you.
Well,
We invited them a lot. But they never came.
I'll come. I want to hear what's going on. I need to be your advocate. I need to know. And so I leave with that. I've enjoyed working with Karen. I feel like she just got the right focus, and I look forward to another good 6 months.
Absolutely.
Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Delegate Adams.
Just, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned the mission of the organization is to support the to the institute, and so that's something that was from the beginning. Didn't change in 2016, correct?
Correct.
And all the funds that have been accumulated since then are designated specifically for new college promotion, new college institute in some form or another. Is that
I
right?
would go as far as to
I mean,
say,
other than operating expenses.
I wouldn't say like the funds that we have invested, some of them are restricted because of donor restrictions. The rest of them don't have restrictions on them per se.
Well, and that was the next thing I was going to ask is, other than you have your board of trustees, 8 members, you said, what other, what governs them in making their decisions in terms of, you mentioned decisions are made about grants and who gets the grants and how much those grants are. Are there any other strictures or anything within your operating documents that will direct how those decisions are made or to be made?
No, that's a good question. No, it rests solely within the body, the trustees. That they are kind of like my stockholders, if you will. They make the final calls. But yeah, that's a good question. I've never even thought of that. There's no outside bodies that kind of oversees them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Good question. Yeah.
If you go back one slide, the internal grants, I mean, I guess I'm going to the Bill Hazel Foundation stuff. It was, how much of that was created, Claude Moore, sorry. How much of that was Matt Leidy very helpful in a lot of that?
I don't know if he was involved with Claude Moore.
Well, not that.
He wrote all of that.
And I just want to try to understand, of all the grants that we've gotten, are those a product of Matt Leidy?
When it comes to the external, the answer is yes. Other than the Claude Moore, I believe, but the answer is yes.
Okay.
When it comes to these are obviously internal driven, so Matt would not be involved with these.
Would that help with that?
I think he was.
I mean, he kind of went between, I think, Matt Dunleavy and, I mean, he was kind of a go-between. He
Yeah.
didn't write it, but he was involved in that. In terms of the Amazon Restart Program, we're recalibrating that bottom. I had sent Kevin a note. Our relationship with Amazon has changed. So we're going to go back to them with a different twist on the proposal from Restart.
Okay, no, I was just trying to see if I'm reading this right. Amazon granted you $100,000, or you granted us $100,000 to support Amazon.
That's
Correct.
the one right
Okay.
there.
Correct.
But
But
I
I think
understand.
the larger question I think you're kind of drilling down on is Matt, as you see, Matt is a key person to this conversation. And I think the conversation of what his role how it plays out over 2022 is going to be ongoing.
Yeah, I think we need to have a conversation along that on who bears the expense of Matt going forward. We'd love to, again, he's very beneficial to you guys and to us.
Yeah.
Who is Matt?
Matt Leidy is our grant writer.
He's a contractor.
Contractor that Karen brought on here, but how the format is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, he writes the grants. We can't get the grants without the foundation, so the foundation functions as basically a pass-through agent to take the money in and then just send it back out. And that
And do the reporting.
and do the reporting back, yes. But that doesn't address, that's what's coming in now, but that doesn't address the earnings off the building sale or any of that other stuff. Because we haven't made, the other thing is we haven't made requests because there's nothing we haven't made any requests to do anything yet.
Well, these two
Other than, I mean, we haven't made any substantive request. I mean, $110,000 really doesn't move the needle, but we've got to we got to let you know what we're trying to do and trying to become. Otherwise, can't ask if we don't tell you what we're trying to do.
That's why I've offered to be around the table. I'd like to know what's going on, just so anytime you have strategy sessions, just consider inviting me so I can hear.
What percentage of the students that come here, i.e. Longwood, not talking about the Amazon, what percentage of the kids coming here are getting any money whatsoever from New College Foundation? What is the percentage? Is it 80% of the kids come here get money, 10%? What is the percent? And do you have a percentage that you're looking to achieve?
Well, we're just working off the ones that apply. So I've been working with, in the past, I think, Chris McDonald? That working with Chris to encourage the applicants to apply. Now, as far as doing the math of what percent, I can tell you 20 got funded. Out of how many? I don't know. I would need to know from
Well, you have to
Margaret.
know those numbers, because what I'm hearing from in my community is that very few of us are getting any money from the New College Foundation. And so that could be two problems. One, they could not know, and that may be a whole lot of it. Or two, it's not apparent in the application process that there is monies available to them. In fact, I've got a young lady that I pushed to get into the Longwood program, who's left the Longwood program because she couldn't afford it, and she didn't want to continue to go into debt. And I could not believe that she didn't get a scholarship from NCI. So I think that there's a disconnect, but it perhaps could be because of social distancing and the coronavirus. But I would like you to put that in the matrix, that you would know what percentage of kids are availing themselves to the New College Foundation scholarship.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. And I think the answer to your question, my understanding is a lot of the instructors, I think, are using part of their class time, encouraging the students to do that very thing, to apply.
Yeah.
That's what I'm told.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Could I
Eric,
offer?
Yeah.
Just, that was a number that jumped out at me too, 20 out of 22. So I think that we have an opportunity working together to talk about creative ways to opt into scholarships instead of the application process. There might be some creative ways to look at qualifying upon application, that people qualify as they come into the school, that way you can get the numbers up. Anything creative like that. That was just a number that jumped out to me, but, piggybacking on kind of what are the percentages, kind of what are the procedures, because I think, immediate impact to students would be access to those funds, but there probably is some creative things that we could do that I would say people disqualify themselves after qualification through a easy qualification process. So some ways to look into that.
Amen. Yeah, I'm all game. I don't like to leave the money on the table.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
How much money is on the table annually out? How much interest are you throwing off annually that can be used for things like scholarships and grant writing?
This last year was 5% was the spending policy. And so our I don't know if it comes from our bylaws. I don't think it's from the article.
So help me with that, 5% of 13.5 million?
Well, it'd be 5% of, let's say, roughly $1 million for the scholarship piece. That would be $50,000 just from our scholarship. But then we can also pull money in what's unrestricted. If you look at what we have on funds that are invested that are unrestricted, is like over $200,000 that's available for spending.
Okay.
And it could be for Amazon, it could be for the Radford program, or some of that 200,000 then could be thrown on top of scholarships to increase the scholarship pool a little bit more too.
And we haven't done that because we haven't asked you to do this?
We have done that, but
Okay.
we had more money allocated to be spent out than what we had applicants.
In Kevin's defense, no one ever expected me to start a sentence like that. In Kevin's defense, COVID has taken a toll on their organization, our organization, and our ability to plan their ability to plan. I think hitting the reset button and us sitting down, not through messengers, having our board sit with some of your boards, when we get to a point to what we're trying to do, and in this community, I think would be the most effective way to go forward. Because there are things that are going to come up that I think we've got to start to show return on investment here, and we've got to start to show a return on investment out of the foundation. Otherwise, I mean, people are going to look at a big pot of money that's not doing anything, and it's going to get a lot of attention. And it's not just on you. You can't do anything unless we ask and we put forward a relevant request. So again, the fault lies, not the fault, or where we are lies at everybody's feet, not just one or the
Well,
other.
and circumstances outside. of
And
control.
circumstances outside our control. But I think the first quarter is a time to put a group of us and a group of your board in the room, and let's have a productive discussion, a productive dialogue with what are we going to do to make NCI and this community better. There are things that we could be doing here now. I think that coming out of COVID, somebody's got to lead, and we're in the best. We have leadership and we have money. We got two biggest components that we need to do that. So
I just want to circle back and just full disclosure, this last cycle, we set the spending policy the first meeting of the year. So it was like $230,000 that our spending policy said, hey, we can spend this out towards grants, or some portion could be reallocated, kind of like a contingency if we need more money in the scholarship pile. And so I spoke to Karen and Matt, and they put together a presentation. I think it was for our May board meeting. And they said, here's everything we have, and here are our grant needs. Would you consider funding any of these? Then the board looked at it and said, give us more information on these two right here. We're excited about these. And that's what they came back at the August meeting, made a grant request, and we funded these. But the scholarship pile is the one that I'm with you. I just need to get more folks.
So did you ask for things that didn't make that list? We had other requests that didn't. That's where, again, that's the dialogue we need to have to understand the process of why didn't something that staff requested fit the need, and who on that side is making a qualified opinion as to why it doesn't fit.
Okay. In all fairness, this was the first money that NCI had gotten out of the foundation in a really long time. So we were happy to have a starting point, just to establish that flow again. So we started there. The other part, I cannot tell you how hard it is to recruit people for people like that Radford Impact Program. I mean, we had parameters that they had to be from Martinsville, Henry County, maybe Patrick. I think we had a couple in Patrick County. I think the parameters were 2 counties, 1 city. And you're trying to get people to get interested in taking a year-long cyber program. I mean, we already had the program, but it had been kind of sitting on the shelf. So this was a way to reinvigorate, and we felt pretty darn lucky to get 8 that not only qualified for the program, but also qualified for the money. So it's not, the pool is just those 8, but by the time you take the 25 that we had in mind, whittle them down to where they live, whittle them down again to who can take the time, whittle them down to who's going to be successful, that number goes down really quick. And like I said, we're retooling the Amazon relationship. That's for another board meeting. I'll come back on that one. But the same thing with Longwood, you know, I mean, to your point, some of those kids are not from Martinsville, Henry County. So I mean, and you know, I don't know who qualifies or who doesn't within the Longwood fold, but that's a really interesting situation for us. We make the opportunity available. Right now, it's incumbent on the student to go do the application, but you also have a university that owns that student that is a little bit, it's not a bad relationship, it's a wonderful relationship, but you got a mothership that's doing FAFSA, we're helping them with FAFSA. But that relationship with financial aid and others is not owned by us, it's owned by Longwood. And so it's a weird, we do a very good dance, and Margaret, who's now on staff, who we'll introduce in a minute, is really working to try to fix those kind of things. But it's a, you know, I gotta be honest, compared to when I started, I thought it was a pretty doggone good start. You know, and I never did think I'd start a sentence with impediments of that. I'm thinking I'm pulling that away and going home right now.
I'm not finished yet.
No, you're not. I'll take what I can get.
I felt good about it as well. We're learning how to dance. We're learning even how we talk to each other. I mean, the fact you said that you're asking to listen in on the strategy sessions, that's something new. I think we're developing a new relationship. Instead of that hitching post I was talking about, we're pointing to the future.
Well, along those lines, three quick requests. I know you can give two of them to Christina. Can we get a commitment to get, I don't even know who's on your board anymore. Can we get an updated list on the board? On your board, I don't think it's on your website. It's current.
I really have one person to add since the last board meeting, Carrie Wright. The rest of them are all up current.
Okay, I didn't know if it was or wasn't. That, an updated 990. We don't have that. Is at one point in time, our executive chairman, Karen, has a seat on your board. Is that still the case?
I just invited Karen or another programming person, whoever wants to come to the meeting.
No, I mean, there's a difference between coming to the meeting and having a seat, but the original.
At one point, I think
That they changed the bylaws to take the executive director off.
They did?
Yeah.
I think that's something, again, that's the past. I think that's something that need to be relooked at, because I know ILAR, like for instance, the Patrick Henry Foundation, most all relationships start with having the foundation you're supporting, your executive director being a member of that board.
I have to, it's been a while since I looked. I believe the Karen would be entitled to a seat on the board. And if I recall, I think it would be the voice and no vote.
I think that might be the case, but I just wanted to be sure. In order to start dialogue, just as you're here, we need to be there, and in whatever capacity that we have to start dialogue, because the time for no action out of all of us, your side and our side, is past.
No, and as I said in my opening line, that my board's excited to hear about the program. That's what they keep asking about. So to either have Karen's voice, Margaret's voice, or someone else that has programming. And the nice thing, Karen, too, all the meetings are Zoom, so you can zoom in wherever you are.
I'm happy.
But
So excited.
I'm happy for the steps that we've taken. We got more to go. But the thing about it is, I think we're joined at the hip. Let's do it together. And let's just keep talking.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir, for what you're doing. Thank you for coming by. We look forward to more collaboration. Appreciate you very much. All right, let's move on to the last item of business for public comment. That is the executive director's reports. Karen or
All right, so this is going to be the speed dating round. Recognizing that everybody would probably like to get out of here. So given that it's 1 minute to 4, I don't think we're going to make it by 4.
that's really
But we're gonna do the best we can. I am not going to do all the talking. I have several members of the team. Tayway, can you load up the presentation? I'm not gonna stand up. I'm gonna sit. Here we go. Can I drive from back there? Okay, so that's where we are. Everybody's got the agenda. Our focus is to think globally, but act locally. That's been kind of the driving force behind where I've been trying to work with NCI and really to take this institution, is to really think about what's going on globally, look at where the industry trends are, but really to figure out how that impacts us, NCI, the community, the Commonwealth, at a more local level. Commonwealth Code, if you haven't seen it, for NCI, diversify the region's economy, serves as a catalyst for economic community transformation. I'm not going to read all of that to you. But that is what the Commonwealth says NCI should be doing. If you look at number 5, it says focus on statewide and regional critical shortage areas and the needs of industry, including adult education and workforce training. Serve as a resource and referral center. You can read that. We're happy to provide the code citation if you really want to dive into that.
And that's very important though for us all to be familiar with. That is our mission statement codified.
That's it. So if you're more of a visual learner like I am, that's what it looks like when you put it into a pretty little graphic. And that's what we live by every day. When we start to talk about programs, we do the best we can to evaluate them along each one of those critical areas that the Commonwealth says we should be doing. So you'll see that's just a sampling. This is an older slide. So there's a couple things on there that, like the Restart program, that's all getting retooled. Cyber Patriot program, the Radford Impact program, which is under the umbrella of cyber. Few things in there, but we try to make sure that everything we do ticks off something that the Commonwealth has said we should be doing. If the Commonwealth doesn't think it's within our mission, we probably shouldn't be doing it. Or we should be doing it under grant funding or some other source of funding other than what the Commonwealth is giving us. Really, and I was having this conversation earlier, NCI has to walk a pretty interesting line. We don't want to be in the business of competing with community colleges. We don't want to be in the business of competing with those who do, like ILR and others who have training. And so we really do try to position ourselves to be unique, to not just layer on more of the same. And really what that leads to is we're becoming a rural innovation center. And that's the message that we want to carry forward to the General Assembly. We want to carry forward to our funders, to our partners, to our stakeholders. I think the interesting paradigm, and Secretary Dec can probably layer onto this a little bit, is forever and a day we've looked to Northern Virginia and other urban areas of the state to fix the rural areas. It always has to be that the urban leads and then the rural lags. My contention is, why can't rural lead? I mean, it's time for rural to have, wind training. It's time for rural to have a place where people can come and get training. And heaven forbid, some of the people from Northern Virginia actually have to come to the rural Virginia to get the training instead of always the other way around. We want NCI to be that place. Obviously, we want to train the local community. That's where we live. That's what we do. But if you go back to the code, it says Commonwealth priorities. And so there's no reason in the world why NCI can't be the Rural Innovation Center for the Commonwealth. One of the things that I've done structurally internally is to form a leadership team. We have about 25 people on staff. We've got a lot going on, a lot of programs, a lot of partners. And so earlier this year, I moved to a leadership team structure. We now have a chief program officer who you'll meet in a minute, a chief information officer who you will meet in a few minutes. Christina, who's the assistant director of finance and operations, website and marketing coordinator, and Rebecca, you'll meet her in a minute. We have an active recruitment on for a K-12 and data person, have some great resumes in that pool. And then we have a coordinator for advanced manufacturing in the training center, in Brian, and you'll meet him in a second. Brian, so what I'd like to do is I'm gonna stop talking. I'm going to let each one of the leaders address very quickly what they're doing in their area so that you get a chance to meet them. You'll be working with them in these committees now. I've threatened them to be extremely brief. But I mean, NCI isn't about me. NCI is about every single person on the staff, in the room, all pulling in the same direction. And these guys are the frontline folks that I rely on daily to make sure that things keep happening. So Brian, I will actually put slides for you. You want me to? All right, Brian Pace is our Director of Advanced Manufacturing in our training center.
Thank you, Karen. I think I spoke to you last time. It's a great pleasure to be here again today. Thank you for this opportunity. The first slide you see is part of our GWO, our Global WIN organization training. And one of the things we're proud about is we're now getting statewide and national recognition for that. Some of those articles that you see there, one of them is governing, one of them is Virginia business, excuse me. And I'm proud of all of those, but also GWO did their own articles and it was extremely good. So, you know, we're beginning to get that recognition and it's been something that's really been helpful to us. As you see, we are a member of we are a training provider for GWO, and it's a Global WIN organization. I think you can tell from those dots there, there's very few on the East Coast. You see the arrow to ours. The one down in Florida was actually our mentor. As we put all this together, they were invaluable to us, and still I stay in contact with them a lot. And then you've got a couple others up above us there. There's been, for a while, there's been training facilities in the Midwest because they've had wind turbines for longer than most other people. But you're going to see probably some trainers even increase on the East Coast, but the amount of training that you do is going to explode here over the next couple of years because the offshore that's going to happen on the East Coast is moving ahead quickly. So we're excited to be a part of that. One thing I'll point out to you, we offer the basic safety training. I won't go into all what that is, and the basic technical training. Of those dots there you see, there are only 3 people in North America that offer the BTT, and we are one of those. And I will tell you right now, that is where we are getting attention. Karen used to tease me because we got everything together. I'm very anxious. I was ready to go, and we got ahead of the curve a while, but now my phone is ringing pretty constant. And that's a great problem to have. And so we have consistently had a lot of training in the BTT. And so we think that's going to increase. We have talked to different places. Dominion Energy is interested, and we have others. And we're also looking at adding some programs, especially as we get to the spring.
And I do want to add one thing to that. We are now drawing attention as training partners for some of these companies. So it's not just sending onesie twosies, it's about establishing a more permanent relationship around that.
And along with that, along those lines, basic technical training numbers are increasing, much more so than the basic safety, but I think it's just the nature of how things are going right now. The other will begin to catch up. But one of the things I'm really proud about, we now have our own internal certified trainers for the basic technical training. Before we were having to contract that out, so it's tough to make money if you're paying all of that out. We don't do that anymore. So it also allows us to be very, very flexible. So if my phone does ring, and we are talking to companies, and I'll forever get into calls, said, can you have a full class for me in the basic technical training? That's 8 students. Okay, that may not sound like a lot, but that you got to understand, it's a very hands-on training, so it stays small. I can say, yeah, when do you want it? You know, if it's 2 weeks, if it's a week and a half, we can put that together now because we have people on staff that are fully qualified and certified to do that. So that's been very, very exciting for us. Karen mentioned we have possible partners, excuse me. I'm not at liberty probably to say who those names are, but one of them, well, both of them are very exciting. They're going to be making a visit, and I have to tell you, and I'm trying to be brief, but I get excited at times, but one of the things, the trainees that we've had here, we do a survey, and the surveys have been overwhelmingly positive. But one of the things I hear constantly, and I've even called back to the companies that have sent their trainers here, is one is they are amazed at the quality of the facility that we're offering. It is way heads and shoulders above anything else that they've seen. So I'm very proud of that, and thank you for how you supported us on that. And and the other thing was, and being a former educator, this really rang to me. I was talking to a company owner not long ago, and I said, well, did you get some feedback? And they said, yeah. And said they loved your area, they loved your facility, but also they said it was a lot more challenging than what they thought it was going to be. And I thought that's a win. That is absolutely a win, because our job is to make sure that these trainees go out, and we've covered exactly, because it is a very detailed what we have to cover in this training. So that's been great. Another thing there, reason BTT is really exploding, Vestas, which is one of the big wind training programs, it's one of the big boys out there. They just made an announcement that starting, well, immediately, I think, that if you work for Vestas or if you're a contractor for asbestos, you have to have the GWO standards. Well, that helps us tremendously because probably one of the main ones that are getting right now is BTT. Remember, I told you, we're one of 3 in North America. So we think that's going to continue to help us. Yes, ma'am.
Really quick question. Are we doing manufacturing training in the wind energy space, or are we only doing after the turbines are built training?
Both somewhat, mainly after, but we are looking at some things, but the learning of the hydraulic systems, how they operated could be part of the manufacturing. But I mean, we're not literally training to manufacture. So
could you do that? Do you want to do it?
Parts of it we could, and there might be something we could investigate in. But there's a very large item, so we would have to.
Siemens has established a manufacturing center
Right.
in Hampton Roads area.
Right,
And
but
so
they're also looking at beefing up their supply chain, and that could happen in other rural areas.
Sure. And again, we have a good relationship with that company. Which is speaking, so.
Yeah, and just point of reference to, I'm going to put the next one, Brian. These courses are $2,400 a student for 4 days. So these are not inexpensive training courses. And by using our own internal trainers, that money goes right into the coffer of NCI. So we're turning a level of revenue. You figure 8 students, $2,500, $2,400 a pop. That's not a bad revenue stream to have, where there used to be not much. Right, Brian? Sorry.
The other thing, again, I'll try to be brief, is we're doing a strong focus on veterans and trying to find ways to get them into our program, because I can, again, the people I've met that have been trainers and such, they have a strong military background. So it's a natural fit for them. I'm proud to tell you that we have just submitted our paperwork to get the GI Bill funding for individuals that come out of the military to do that. That was a daunting feat, and I'll give credit where credit is due. Evan Kissel, who is one of our employees and trainers, he worked very hard to get that together. I mean, we were able to get it done in a month. So that may sound like a lot, but it was huge. And so we're waiting for the results of that. Also, we have signed a contract with a company called Outer Ridge Technical Solutions, and actually, it's a young man that is currently in the military, getting ready to come out, but has formed his own business. So he has inside tracks there, and he does SkillBridge. And if you're not familiar with that, SkillBridge is a program where they offer the opportunity for service members to gain valuable civilian experience through specific industry training, apprenticeships, internships, whatever. So, and he has already hit the road with that. Some of the things just in this month that he was looking at doing, in November, we're building relationships with Army educational offices in the 757 region in the beach area. Informational sessions about NCI are beginning to take place at Fort Story. And also social media posts within 2 military-focused Facebook groups, which I need to get him in touch with you guys, are starting to happen too. So our information is getting out there. And as soon as we can get this GI Bill thing passed, we'll be able to offer funding, and it's going to open up a world of possibilities. Okay. Also, the WIN program and the Certified Production Technician program, I haven't explained exactly what the CPT is. It's through the Manufacturing Skills Standards Consortium, but it's stackable credentials that you can earn that we do on our advanced manufacturing gear. And we think those are the 2 main programs that will be benefited by having the GI Bill funding available. So those are the main 2 things we're focusing to try to get funding and have them come in. Also, there's something called Cornerstone. We're beginning to be a part, or we've got an OTA with Cornerstone. And basically that's just the public-private collaboration across specific industrial-based sectors and requirements. In other words, it's to strengthen the U.S. industrial base and to improve U.S. competitiveness. So we have a retired individual that is working with us, and be able to try to get into that and find where we can fit, how we can help with that. Also, as mentioned there, that there's a Defense Manufacturing Conference 2021, and we were on the phone a week ago, Karen, and it was a high suggestion that they send someone for NCI. So thank you, Karen. I get to go to Colorado this So, no, I'm very, very excited about it. Matter of fact, Karen had put me in contact with other people there. I've already contacted them, meeting them Monday morning first thing. So I think we're gonna come away from that with a ton of contacts and be ready to hit the road with that. So I'll be quiet. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just one question, something that I've been looking to maybe think about. As you're working with the Department of Defense, expanding the program a little bit, I think there's going to be some major decisions coming up whether wind is going to be considered a part of the U.S.'s critical infrastructure as we start relying on wind in some of those areas. So I would say we collectively track that, because as that becomes open, there's opportunities and more things from a IoT, networking, telecommunications coverage and funding that's going to come available, I think, if certain wind turbine zones are considered critical infrastructure. I think right now it's considered alternative. I don't know how it's defined. There will be, the electrical grid and the wind extension of that is something that I think maybe just keep tracking. Then with that, there's going to be kind of a Pandora's box that opens up if that's considered critical infrastructure. I don't think right now it is, but something to think about.
You mean it could be opportunity?
Opportunity space, yeah. It's opportunity to open the program once wind is considered, well, it's certain wind. I think the East Coast offshore is something that they're thinking about, right? If you lose one, you can rely on the other type thing. How do you bring that in? But I don't think wind right now is considered in the in that critical infrastructure. Another, project that I'm on is the NCI. It's a national security. So I'm on the critical subcommittee for cyber. So that's one of the things that we're considering. Right? It's like, what is critical infrastructure? Right? Is wind and renewable resources in that zone? Right now, it's kind of on the fringe. Just something to keep your eye on.
One thing, Senator Stanley, you mentioned this earlier. I am proud to say it has been tough working with K-12, getting into the schools or them coming here, especially. But as it began to open up, luckily my former career was in education, so we have our first class from the Career Academy at Henry County. It's going to be here next week, and so I'm excited about that. I think those schools are being open now too. So hopefully that also. And a lot of those students are turning 18, which is an age restriction for the program, but I think it would be very interesting.
Rebecca Hughes is our marketing guru-esque and all things social media, image, the whole 9 yards.
Well, we've got a good team, which I'm very grateful for. Yes, I'll try to touch on these quickly as well. And so first of all, like Senator Stanley said earlier, it's been kind of a challenge with COVID and trying to figure out how to market to this new normal, but we're with different ideas, and some things are working. More people are finding out about GWO, which is one of the things that we put out there, getting a lot of good feedback. For advertising, we have not just print but digital. We've got relationships with Martinsville Bulletin, Fountain Lake Chamber Tourism Guide, Martinsville County Chamber, Coastal Virginia. So we've had print, and some of those were digital advertising. Other programs and those. WSLS, we started a relationship with them this past year, and they had a commercial that they put together for us that was actually run during the Olympics. So that's pretty cool. They're helping us also with GWO targeted, with really narrowing down a target. They also create a video for us, which is on our YouTube channel. If you want to check out the NCI YouTube page, you can see that video. And there's another one about GWO, which we put out at the beginning of the year, running our facility and the programs there. Press releases, we have a relationship with Meltwater. If you are not getting a press release that we send out, let me know so I can make sure you're on our list. But those are also on our news, on the news section of the website. So let me know if you're not getting them.
Could you just put us all on that?
I think you are. So if you're not getting them, let me know. I think that your names are all on that list. So if you're not getting the press release, let me know.
I was going to say, be no way for her to know if she's not getting
Okay.
them, if she's not getting them.
Okay.
Why don't you coordinate with?
So all
Yeah,
all
Christina
I'm
gets a list.
suggesting is anything that is newsworthy, that you put a board email list together and just send it to us.
Okay, are you getting anything from NCI at all? Because we send out an e-newsletter as well
No,
to the board.
no.
Okay, no one's getting it? Okay, all right, so I'm gonna double check on that. Thank you. Check that. So one thing we've run into is stuff going to spam, so I'll check on that. All right, handouts and flyers, we've created a whole bunch of new ones. There's a bunch in the back on the table back here on the left. You can see some of the samples that Brian and I took to the trade show, IPF, in August. So there's those, a whole bunch of new, we've had a logo roll out, some of that branding is on all the new materials back there. The promotional items, like get some ornaments made for next year. Got the new tablecloths here. So all these banners back here were at the trade show. So trying to really promote the logo and what NCI is trying to cover, workforce development, all these different areas. Yes, I understand. We need apparel with the logo.
I'll buy it. I can't say it.
Social media, Kim Phillips does most of social media. She's got a great background in that. So she handles all our Instagram, Facebook, all that. She's added Pinterest and TikTok, which is reaching different audience as well. So all those links are also on our website. At the top, there's a link to all of our social media outlets. You can click those to see what she's been posting. And since hiring her, our reach has increased with both Facebook and Instagram, and that's all been organic. We did do one campaign with WSLS that worked out great as well. So that's most of the social media. So that's also talking about e-newsletters, but I'll double check everybody's email in there.
Can I ask a quick question on the social media? And I've kind of always wanted this from a board perspective. I know like NCI is pushing information out. I've been reluctant to push anything out from my page about NCI, my board membership. What is there kind of a rule-based and platform that we follow from you all? And what is that promotion from the board to the community from us, from this body? Like, I mean, we reposted what you post, but is there anything specific or around the board communication out that's prohibited or not allowed?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're free to, once we're a public body, right?
Okay.
So I mean, there's little to nothing that, I mean, except for closed session.
Correct.
Pretty much everything we do is in the ethos. So whatever you deem that you'd like to do is fair game. Rebecca would be your point of contact if you have any questions. We're working really hard to put in standard operating procedures, templates, getting everything into a consistent and replicable format so that everything goes out with a certain level of quality. But in terms of if you want to retweet, repost, forward, say that you're on the board, what a great place NCI is. Rebecca, if you'll give everybody as well the like the hashtag, not the hashtags, but like the at New College Institute, all of the social media kind of
So you
call
can
outs
tag
for
them.
us, the
Yeah.
tags.
Okay.
Then you guys can use them at will.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And people, just share it, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter.
Got it.
And then, let's see, events is also kind of falls under marketing, and Erica manages all those. She's fantastic, does a great job. And I'm sure many have probably interacted with her, but she's an excellent at that planning. And she actually too is, people are finally just starting to participate in like the life events. We were kind of slow, obviously during COVID, that started to pick up a whole lot. And she's done a great job of coming up with good procedures since the purchase of the building and how people reserve rooms and everything required there. So that's so far, I think too, if you want to reserve a room, all that information is also on the website. And it's a website. Kim and I kind of tackle that together, and it's an ongoing process, regularly making updates.
And we are, certainly in a constant state of revamping as new programs are brought in. And certainly if anyone has any feedback or suggestions, we're open to any of that. So that's about all I have. Like questions?
Annual report, Rebecca.
Yep, that's coming up. I'll have that for everyone to read for.
We'll be sending out, we're doing an annual report every year. Senator Stanley has a letter in it. I have a letter in it. And otherwise, we can show you the one that we had last year. If anybody's interested, but we did it all electronic because last year everybody was out for COVID anyway. But it really was a good reflection, and we'll have those ready for the legislative session and the visit day.
Are we printing this year or it's all digital?
I think we'll print some.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're good. People read them in the journal somewhere. I hear about it. About how my picture looks like a high school picture.
Well, it could be worse.
All right, Margaret. So Margaret is a new addition to the team. Margaret came to us, about 4 or 5 months ago?
Yes.
And so she has taken over. She's our Chief Academic and Programs Officer. So she has been, along with her team, out visiting all of the partner institutions, out working with the schools. We are going to bring on, as I showed earlier, a K-12 person that's going to be dedicated. That's kind of like the Steve Keiser position that he retired, but it's going to be on steroids. And that person will also be responsible. So some of the stuff that Margaret's doing right now with K-12 will transition to that person. But for now, she and her team are the outward facing road warriors for NCI around the state and the university partners. Margaret?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm very excited to be here at NCI and the words of Senator Sun. Education is the way out of, having an opportunity to have an opportunity. Myself, I've been raised by an educator. My dear late mom, she passed away in September. She was an educator. I understand what it is to have opportunity and what it is not to have opportunity. And as we're going around meeting our partners, meeting the community members, I hear and I see resilience. I see resilience at NCI. I hear opportunity and we see opportunity. We as a team here, we're so excited. We have been working collaboratively. That's the approach we have. Collaboratively with internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. So talking about education, talking about opportunities, yesterday we had a completion ceremony with a Longwood University partnership that we have, and we're going to get to that slide. You will see it. As of now, we have an excellent program that facilitated and run by John Maxwell. So far, 2,991 certificates in 50 states, 7 foreign countries. We're so excited, and we are actually in conversations, and Dr. Ken will talk about that, about some possibilities of what we can potentially do. It's a possibility, and we're going to be looking at that. Okay, go to the next slide. I know I'm not going to talk for too long because we have several slides. Next one. So since I've been here, we have been meeting with, again, our partners. Our goal is to solidify our relationships, build new relationships, and continue expanding and looking at where are the gaps? How can we partner and collaborate to help fill those gaps? How can we bring those opportunities here? And how can we continue to collaborate to grow those programs that we have, replicate them, for example, when we have a long, so that we can continue to provide even more opportunities to our students. And when we talk about, NCI as a motivation center, and also opportunity center, part of what we're also doing is having conversations and continuing conversations with PH, African Community College, to see how can we work together so that we can complement the work that they're already doing. And we can see, for example, the 2+2 process. How is it that once the students finish from the community college, they can potentially come here and have an opportunity to advance and get that degree, and even possibly advance to a master's and even a follow, like what we have with the community currently. We went to DMAS, and we're having conversations also about different programs we can do with them. We're already talking about the STEM day for 2022, and we're already working on the logistics. These are things we can do with the local school district. Over the weekend, when we were at the, I went to the conference this day, we had a conversation with Amazon about programs that we can bring in again for STEM, potentially. It could be summer camps, it could be in-house, possibility of having them in-house as our STEM partners here. So that's exciting. We're going to continue this conversations. We have been kind of the strategy, I think you can see I think coming in suitcases. Today, we are having our very first HBCU college fair in Martinsville, the very first one. So in the words of Maria, and Maria, thank you so much. We were working together in collaboratively with members of our team as well, in putting together our diversity inclusion plan. And with that, we had also put out a survey, a community survey, to see what is the need. And again, in the words of Senator Stanley, bring people to Albany, making sure that we can showcase Albany. And that is also part of our strategy as we bring people in. Then we follow up conversations of what are the possibilities. They're meeting our community. Our students are also seeing these reps from all over the country. So we had a backdoor college fair, and we had reps from all over the country here in September, very first one. And now we're having a HBCU fair. We're also going to have what we call the Greek community also here. And we are also planning our very first Black History Month in 2022 with a whole list of items and in place. And why are we doing this? Because for us to be able to have these conversations, which we are currently having, I know I was asked, I'm in my car, running around the street, meeting with our partners, because we have to showcase what we have. And then I believe, and our team believes, then we go, we meet them where we are, we see what they have, then we have discussions about what are the possibilities. So we're very excited. Listed there, I'm not going to read all of them, some of the initiatives we've been doing so far. We dropped 169 books, Patrick Henry County, 464 books in the county, 125. So we have been visiting, and that is our strategy also as we go in. We're going to talk about that as part of the highway, is looking at not only bringing the students from, for example, a high school level or from college level, but starting from way before that, all the way from middle school. So how can we start creating that culture whereby NCI can be a home? I get very passionate about this somewhere. And yes, we are out there in the community. We're meeting people. And even with the pandemic and COVID, we're finding ways we can do it in a way that is help, we still stay healthy and stay safe. Completion ceremony yesterday, right there, our students completed. And faculty, our partnership with our faculty at the event yesterday, and we see the wonderful robot when we were at the basic conference. And really, these are exciting times as I going out and meeting our stakeholders and different partners and having conversations. Sometimes I'm asked, why NCI? And my answer is, why not? Why not NCI? This is a time for us to showcase and to really show the value we add to the community. I'm very excited, and thank you for your support. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the opportunity. And we are all very excited for the possibilities ahead. So
thanks, Margaret. Next up, there we go. Dr. Ken Russell. He is our new CIO, thank God. Tayway has always done a magnificent job of keeping the trains running on time, getting everything done. He's been magnificent. You see his work today, flawless, it's wonderful. But Ken brings another level to this conversation of being able to bring in partners that he's worked with in the past. Has a very unique ability to see strategic partnerships with Margaret and myself and Brian, and everybody to pull pieces together on the technology side. So there's your intro.
Well, appreciate that. I promise I won't speak too long, but I'm excited about this. I'm excited to be here with you guys today, so thank you for coming. I'm gonna focus on 3 specific areas today around this idea or concept of technology innovation. Okay, not just IT, the innovation that surrounds all that we do here at NCI. We're building on a solid infrastructure foundation. As you know, in the past year, quite a lot of money went into infrastructure and pieces and parts and software. So the first thing I started to do was reach out to those folks that we bought things from and started creating a partner relationship, not a vendor relationship, but a partner relationship, helping them understand our value and working with them to find ways to do something amazing together. And to that end, I'll hit a few of them here. You recognize some of the names up there. Cisco, they just released about 3 weeks ago a new HoloLens technology, and we're going to be one of the first pilots for that. We haven't announced that yet, but I'm here to tell you that I'm going to see it for the first time next week in RTP. We hope to bring it up and do some things with Brian's work, which I want to blend that one into the Vital conversation. You may have seen the press release that we released about a month or so ago with the folks in Richmond and Vital to create an augmented reality, virtual reality suite on our 2nd floor that will allow folks that are in Brian's program initially, because that's our pilot, that they'll be able to put the goggles on and appear as if they're 300 feet in the air. Just imagine the ability to learn using virtual reality without having to actually climb 300 feet in the air. So we're excited about that. Doing some amazing things with Zoom as well, particularly with Longwood University initially and some of our other partners as well. The ability for us to use the Zoom room concept, which will be basically instead of, you've all been on Zoom before where you kind of spend the first 5 minutes of the Zoom just trying to figure it all out. We're going to use some technologies that will allow us just to kind of make our presence known, tap a button and make it work. So we're excited about to work with Zoom with those guys. We've been talking a little bit about Amazon Web Services today and AWS and the Restart program. But one of the things that Karen and I kind of brought up at our meeting about a month ago or so was, why just focus on one cohort? But by that I mean, we're an and organization, not an or organization. So one of the and things that I mentioned was that why not executives? When I was at the Bank of America years ago, we had a Six Sigma program where all the folks got trained to be black belts or green belts. But we also had for the executives a champions program. And that was important because we at the executive level needed to know how to communicate what the value of these programs are. So we're talking to Amazon about maybe creating a champions program for all these cloud computing professionals that we're creating. So that might be a good thing for us to do. I'll finish up. There's a quick thing that we're doing with ARIA. You see it up there, this idea of spatial analytics, this idea of using the building data that where we're sitting at today, how we're interacting in the hallways, all that stuff can be picked up by our technology that we installed a year ago. Now, notice what I said, installed. There's a big difference between installing technology and implementing technology. So what we're going to do with these ARIA folks is implement some of our existing technology and do new and cool things with it. Okay? And then finally, the merit thing, Margaret mentioned that. We're going to do some things with Margaret's programs. We're thinking of telehealth pilot. We're not quite sure where we're going to put it. But we mentioned earlier this idea of stackable credentials. The ability to say, okay, I've got these credentials from here, these credentials from there. How do I aggregate those and use those in a new, meaningful way? So Merit is a software that'll help us do that. So we're doing a lot of stuff in that area. You've heard about collaboration a lot today. So we're going to do a lot of work with innovation and collaboration. And then I'm going to throw the third word into this idea of nurturing these partnerships. And then when you think about technology, you also think about the operations and things that just kind of assuring that we're doing the right thing with regard to cybersecurity, the right thing with regard to operating procedures and things like that. So we're creating an enterprise architecture for this organization to make sure that we are doing what we say we're doing and we can prove it. And that's what you see in that second bullet, this idea of focus on simplification, resiliency, and automation, pushing things to the cloud where and when we can. So Tailway doesn't have to run around and plug things in and fix things all the time. We can leverage the cloud when it's appropriate. And that'll help us reduce our on-prem footprint, and also will enable us to strengthen our remote access and our system management capabilities. And then finally, this idea of valued voices. And this could include you guys too, or folks that you may know. What was really nice about coming on board is that a lot of the heavy lifting from infrastructure was done. And thank you, Karen, for that. Thank you for the board for that. But what it's done is it's allowed me to kind of meet new people. And Karen mentioned before that I have some folks in the industry. So what I'm gonna try to do is build a council, what I call a technology innovation council, that will be those valued voices that can contribute, not only to give us good ideas and thoughts, but those folks that were connected to Silicon Valley, Silicon Prairie, Boston, places all around the world really, that are doing neat and amazing things that we can bring here to our Rural Innovation Center. So excited about it. Love to tell you more about it. I know I'm out of time. Thank you.
Can I ask one question? Can you connect the dots between that last thing you talked about, this
Technology Innovation Council.
Technology Innovation Council? How does that help Martinsville and the Commonwealth?
I think that's a great question. What it does is it allows us to bring technologies into Martinsville, to pilot them, to explore them, like this thing with the HoloLens. We probably would never get that just by being Martinsville. But because we have NCI here, we'll be a magnet for those kinds of things, because the nice thing about Martinsville is that we're big enough to be relevant, but we're small enough to do a full-fledged pilot from beginning to end. And organizations like Cisco and places like that, they really care about being able to have a use case.
They're looking for that.
Correct.
And you're positioning NCI and Martinsville, this region, as a place that has a national significance.
So I suspect that you'll see a video on us within the year on some sort of Silicon Valley based company on their website.
Thank you.
So I do nothing fun, nothing cool. I have nothing exciting.
You have a cool nickname.
Numbers.
Sounds like a movie.
Numbers?
Definitely not words.
So Karen asked us to do these PowerPoint slides. I said, okay, what can I tell you that I've done in the last 6 months since the last time the board met? And this year, of course, the Commonwealth, keeps us busy with, you are required to submit. So these were following plans that were new that we had to create that were not updating plans or revisions to current plans that we have. So we had to create the fiscal year 22 SWAM plan. SWAM plan is related to the purchasing, small business, women, and minority. So we had to submit that. We had an E077 plastic pollution and solid waste reduction plan to submit. Boy, that was fun. That was so much fun. We also had to submit the diversity and inclusion plan, as Margaret mentioned. That was a staff collaboration along with a board member. It was really great conversations. It was submitted. The fiscal year 22 workforce plan, that is one that we have to do every year. However, the process or the format of the Excel spreadsheet changes, but that one got submitted as well. So in 6 months, those were a lot. Certifications that we are required to do are year end. So at 6:30, we have a massive amount of certifications we have to go through, as well as ARMIX, which is the agency review, measurement, internal controls survey, risk management, agency of risk management, internal control. That was an extremely long process that I had to coerce many other employees to help with. It was awesome. In addition, we have to do higher education financial statements. There are 14 of them. We have submitted all 14. Yay! I think there's one more due in January. And then employee evaluations were all due by the end of October. I believe that they were all completed.
Plus, I still have a few.
So those are the required deadlines that we had to go next year. And then I said, okay, what can I tell you about my financial and operational portion of what I do? Some of the tasks that were large for the past 6 months is the Human Capital Management Project, which the state is converting its lovely HEMIS system to the HCM system. So that's all about human resource. It's great. State loves acronyms. The
That
new-
one's a little questionable.
That's
Unless you're reading it.
the fun part, is just saying.
And with her accent, it just really.
Love it numbers.
So that will start in, that'll launch in March. But we have lots of tasks that are due every month, so we are on target. We also had the lovely APA visit us, virtually, but we went through not an audit, it's what they call a questionnaire. It was a very 3-month, 4-month process and still working on the finalization of it. So I think it went really well. Don't know if Karen wants to elaborate on anything on this. We just have the 2023-2024 decision package submission. So that every agency has the ability to submit a decision package request, which is new funding, to the governor. And we submitted 2 packages, and then the governor's budget comes out the 18th, 17th, 16th.
Whichever.
Believe me, we're breathlessly waiting.
We will know then whether or not our request made it. And then facility management, that falls under me as well. Just to know, we've had these 3 issues. We have an issue with the sprinkler system. We had an issue with power outages resulting in additional building issues once the city loses power. And then we've had HVAC water leaks. So with all of that said, the state has released maintenance reserve funds now that we own the building. Thank goodness we were able to bank what we had started growing in the past few years. And we will be addressing these issues along with others that we are about estimating like 1.5. And then the last slide is the budget review, which is in your packet. But these are the highlights. We have received our appropriated amount of $2.8 million. DPB released the maintenance reserve monies. None of it's been expended to date, but we have plans for those. Expenses through 10/31 were $764,000. Spend rate is 26%, so we're on target. That's general fund. Non-general fund total revenue through 10/31, we received $586,000. This is from program and grant revenue. Total expenses, our expenses related to funding for the grants, which is mainly the COE, which falls under Brian, and telehealth program, which falls under John Maxwell, which is under Margaret. And that totaled $125,000. Done.
You're right, that wasn't exciting. Any questions for numbers? All right, thank you, Madam Executive Director. Appreciate everybody's doing. Certainly, it gives us a good vaulting spot moving on into the future. So I commend every single one of you for what you all have done. We have nothing further except for public comment on the docket. Are there any comments anybody who's a board member would like to make? Hearing none, do we have anybody signed up for public comment or anyone in the room that would like to make a public comment? If so, stand to be recognized in the room or in the Zoom room. Yes, sir.
I just want to make one brief comment to draw your attention to the Virginia Chamber's Blueprint 2030, which they just released on Friday. That's Governor-elect Young. And a number of items again relate to, I think, what NCI is doing. You might want to draw attention to a new section that focuses on veteran affairs and how to incorporate the veterans into the workforce. I think that's very important.
Yes.
And also pathways to health sciences, and health services. Assistant Karen working on the lawyer and Claude Moore, and also infrastructure, training workers to provide broadband services. That's a very important part of infrastructure. NCI, I think, is well positioned to support that. It's all included in here. To the extent that the chamber can support it, please feel free to reach out.
Excellent.
I appreciate you mentioning that. I had printed out a copy to mention that earlier, but Jim's been invaluable with Alan and everybody in this room and helping.
Wait a minute, and Jim, why was I a legislator of the year? You can give it more than once.
Is there things such as legislative?
Yeah, it's a big, huge Eagle trophy, like even in literature. Yeah, I know, you gave it to Chap Peters. Look at that.
Who decides that?
I don't know. They decided me one year and I was like, wow.
Love it.
We're working on
Thank you. Happy to succeed myself. But, yeah, the chamber is very important. I think we do need to make sure that we establish maybe in the statute, things like a strong relationship, not just with our local chambers, but also with the statewide chamber. They really are good, not just in facilitation and also collaboration, but they're a great resource and a great help when you're aligned on issues going into the General Assembly. They do shape policy. They do shape legislation. So is there anyone else who'd like, other than the secretary, who would like to make public comment? Is there anyone signed up to make public comment or is currently on the Zoom call who would like to comment? Hearing none, we have reached the end of the day. I'm sorry this goes long, but we have so many important things to do. We try not to take up too much of your time too often, but when we do, we have things that happen. I want to thank the executive director of the foundation for coming by and every one of you who also came by and said wow on our porch. We got some of our business done with us. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn, which is not committed.
So moved.
Motion being made to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Say no. All right, the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, sure.